Welcome to Stream After Hours, featuring Amanda Coop and Amanda Torres.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amanda Coop. I'm a regional managing director in our property management division. I sit in Austin, Texas, and I oversee several of our markets, Austin, El Paso, Denver, Nashville, and Phoenix. And I also work very closely with our directors in Atlanta and the Carolinas. I've been with Stream 6 years and moved to Texas when I joined Stream, moved down from Chicago. And so it's been a great handful of years being part of the Stream culture and Stream family. I love everything about Texas.
I am Amanda Torres. I work here in Stream Austin. I am the VP of Industrial Property Management. I've been with the company for 4 years now, hired by Amanda Coop, and I am the national client manager for our DRA portfolio.
Which is no small feat. They are one of our largest industrial clients. You get to herd all the cats. Now you know how I feel.
I do.
Yeah. I do want to say, Amanda, I was thinking about it as we were, preparing to get together today. I remember, and not to say I don't remember everybody I've hired or the moments that I've extended an offer to someone, but I remember very clearly calling you to give you a verbal offer before we extended your offer letter, and just how excited I was to ask you to work with us and to come to Stream. And I think you answered the call while you were at your daughter's gymnastics meet, and so I know you had a lot going on around you. But I think the excitement on both of our parts was pretty equal. So that was a very special day for me, knowing you were coming to join us. So we're so glad you're part of our team.
I was super excited to get that call. I got to leave medical commercial behind, and I started on something new, and I have thrived in industrial. One thing that Amanda Coop is not aware of is she would send out email correspondence to all of the Austin managers, and it was always so detailed and it was always so specific, and I would save those emails like I was stalking her. And then I would literally I would literally mirror my emails to my property management team by how she wrote her emails. And I've just used that and perfected it over the years.
Well, that's flattering. I mean, communication comes in all forms, but yeah, when you've got to send a piece of guidance or instruction, or, we do lots of huge tasks throughout the year, right? Like where everybody has to do the same thing by the same time, more or less in the same way. Think about budgets and our operating expense reconciliations. So I try not to over communicate via email, but yeah, there are certain things where we definitely have to make sure everybody knows what the steps are and what's going on. So I did not know that. I did not know that you were saving those as a model of communication, but I'm flattered by that. Thank you.
Well, just to get right into everything, I really want to know, how did you get started in commercial real estate? Like what led you to this path?
Well, I think, like so many people, there was no initial plan, right? Lots of folks will say, I just sort of fell into this industry. Going back a little bit further to starting in commercial real estate, I'd had like a poignant conversation with, I think it was a friend's older brother when I was still in high school, and I grew up in Denver, and so this individual was already going to school at undergrad at CU Boulder. And my dad had just gone through he owns his own company, but he had gone through a pretty stressful time, with some partners that he worked with. And so I think, I was having this conversation about wanting stability for my career path, and, seeing my dad as kind of a model of an entrepreneur and the head of his own company, was impressive. But I think for me at that time, I didn't want the ups and downs in my career that I saw he went through at certain times. And so this individual had kind of counseled me, well, everybody needs an accountant, right? So, so that for whatever reason, that little seed kind of got planted that accounting equals stability and longevity and career opportunities. So I went to school probably the next year or two, studied accounting, got out of, I graduated from Colorado State in the late 90s, moved down to Denver for a couple of years before I decided to move to Chicago, working as a staff accountant. And Chicago for me was, my parents had relocated back to the Midwest. In their case, that's where all of our extended family's from. And so I picked Chicago as kind of the halfway point, like a city of large opportunities, but I didn't want to go live in the Detroit suburbs. That didn't really appeal to me. And so coming, into a large market like Chicago, not having professional connections, but at the time, I think lots of recruiters were starting to, recruit and search for resumes online. This was in 2001. And so I was very fortunate, I think, to have been matched up with a recruiter who really looked at my resume and said, here are some great companies I think you would flourish at, and I was not wanting to be, taken down a path of like traditional, I didn't want to be a CPA. That wasn't why I studied accounting and finance. Anyway, so just the move to Chicago really precipitated me joining the commercial real estate industry. My very first job in the city was with an international REIT, a retail mall REIT, and they had a liquidity event about 9 months into that. And so I started with them as an analyst, and that liquidity event meant our finance group was being disbanded. Fairly quickly after I moved to that city. So it was a little bit of a scary time. But I think for that stage of my career, the advice that I got to focus on accounting or finance was a good one because, there were so many opportunities. And that's when I ended up joining the John Buck Company in Chicago as a property accountant at the time. But I was with them 5 years, and they were very entrepreneurial, a lot like Stream. And I sort of segued from accounting back to, an analyst role in their investment fund team, and then really wanted to figure out a way to get to asset management. And so had gotten some advice from one of our internal leaders who said, the best asset managers have direct property management experience. And so that's when I embarked on my very first direct real estate assignment. So it was a very long answer to your question, but I think there's no straight path in commercial real estate, which is great. I think a lot of it ends up being choose your own adventure, and as much as we try as leaders to make sure that we are creating paths for people, I think this is an industry where folks have a lot of agency over the direction that their career can take, which I think is pretty unique, and it's a differentiator for all of us.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a wonderful answer. It wasn't too long at all.
How did you get? So I know when we first were talking and when we hired you, you were working in medical commercial real estate. Was that your first? I don't remember now. Was that your first role in commercial real estate?
So in commercial real estate, yes, I started in medical commercial, but that was almost 10 years ago. And basically what happened was I was in residential property management, and I was going through a divorce. So I decided to take the scale back, and had a small child. And I answered, believe it or not, I understand some people are not as old as me. I answered an ad on Craigslist. And it was a recruiting firm, and they were looking for someone to fill a part-time position at a medical REIT, and it was going to be a contract position for like 90 days. But I actually fell in love with it. And after
I would love to see the person who only accepted to work with you for 90 days. Like, no way.
Well, that was the beauty of it. They decided to hire me on full time.
Of course they did.
And, and that's how I started in commercial real estate. I just wanted to see how it differed from residential, and I wasn't sure if I was even made of what it takes to be a commercial property manager, right? So I tried it out. I actually fell in love with it. I love commercial real estate. What I did not realize is I chose the hardest piece of commercial real estate, medical commercial. So when I was offered a position by the VP at the time here at Stream, I was like, sure, I'll try something different. Let's see how it goes. And what I didn't realize is when I was accepting that position, I was literally accepting a new home. I've been here 4 years. I have grown with the people who started with me. I've grown with the people who have left the company. I've grown with the people who've been promoted alongside me. And the first time in 20 years, I'm at a place where I feel I am accepted for who I am, my voice is heard, and my opinion holds weight. And that is something that I think everybody wants in a company, right?
Yeah, as ultimately the person, who feels most responsible in a good way. I mean, for your career and for your opportunities. Like it's very heartwarming for me to hear that too, because I think just generally, as women in commercial real estate, we know that the landscape has changed certainly over the last 10 years and 20 years. And it is a much more balanced industry today than it was when I started. And the people that, were my early career mentors, certainly when they started. And so just for you to have given me some validation that we are doing things right from a leadership perspective, from a company perspective, that you feel seen and heard throughout, like that's our goal. We want everybody to have the opportunity to shape the way that we do our business, shape the way that we model our teams, and deliver our service. So I'm really glad to hear that.
Yeah, I am. But you have a good eye. I remember when you offered me the job, you were like, I only hire Amanda. So you were a shoo-in.
Yeah. That's right. I take full credit. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
So for you, being in commercial real estate and having the path, you've been on both sides. You've done analyst, you've done property management, accounting. What are some experiences that have challenged you in the career, and how did you navigate those? How did you say, okay, this is how I'm going to make things work?
I think like prior to Stream, and having, a leadership role like this, I did have a national leadership role with a REIT based out of Chicago. But really, I think my first, what I would call very challenging career position. So in late 2008, I was offered an opportunity to move to Frankfurt, Germany with Morgan Stanley Real Estate. And I was in the C-suite. I was 31 years old. And I was the only executive that was offered a position from America other than our CEO. And our CEO for this asset management firm that we were building from the ground up had been the global head of asset management for Morgan Stanley Real Estate International, for the 15 years prior to that. And he had actually retired earlier that year, and they'd asked him to come out of retirement to get this company up and running. And I think, it was a tremendous opportunity just in terms of the size and scale. We built an asset management company. I was in charge of all the business planning and reporting for all of the pan-European holdings. So we had about $8 billion of assets under management, everything, primarily Class A office, some cold storage, a little bit of industrial, some forward deals, but primarily trophy office buildings throughout continental Europe and Scandinavia. And I think I had naivety on my side because I really didn't know anything going into it about what the differences in corporate culture would be from America to Germany. And so I will say this, I don't think I went in like Pollyanna. I went in feeling I had been validated by the individual who was leading our firm who had hired me. And I'd gone through a gauntlet of interviews with the Morgan Stanley leadership in New York and in Frankfurt. So I really felt like, okay, I didn't have imposter syndrome, which I fully expected. I thought, I've gone through all these interviews, like they clearly think that whatever my skill sets are, my tangible skill sets are, that would be of value for the company and for what we were trying to do. I think I learned the most in that opportunity about my soft skills, my communication as a leader. I think, for me, Amanda, like I can, when a message needs to be delivered in a very concise, specific way, like, we can all be direct, right? And direct doesn't necessarily mean bad or aggressive or negative. But I think that at the time, I was transitioning from having run a very large real estate asset in Chicago. I was running John Hancock Center at the time. So I was managing a team, but not a team across such a vast amount of like true physical real estate space. We had offices in all of the German markets, Madrid and Paris, but also I had a language barrier. I had a culture barrier that I wasn't anticipating. And so I think, and I remember my direct, kind of boss at the time, it was sort of a joint effort between the CFO and the CEO who I reported to, but kind of came to me about 6 months in, and he's German, this guy named Thomas Hartman, really sweet. And he says, Amanda, I think, and I was leading a team of about 10 analysts of varying seniority levels at the time. And he said, I think your team is a little confused. And I said, oh, really? Okay, what can I do? And I was trying to learn German, but that, everybody spoke perfect English. And I said, oh gosh, what can I do to help? What are they confused about? Because we had very specific direction from Morgan Stanley, what we needed to be doing and when we needed to be doing it by. And he said, they're not really sure from you when you give them tasks, when they need them back by, if it's okay, to get it to you by a certain date. And so it really taught me, I think I was trying to be gentle because I didn't want to be viewed as being aggressive. But I learned that there's a balance there in the communication style, that really people who are certainly, at different stages of their career, but folks who are either just starting out or who are in a position where they're reporting to someone, they really do want clear, concise direction. And it's not, it can be a challenge. So that was a challenge, just kind of learning to find my own voice and my own confidence in giving direction and knowing that just to give someone, the task of something to do, whether it be large or small or macro or micro, wasn't a bad thing. But also, I think the culture in Germany, the corporate culture across the board, not our firm necessarily, women in the workplace in terms of executive positions were not as far along as what I left behind in America. And I just think I was 31 years old when I moved to Frankfurt and took that job. And I think had I been a little bit more self-aware at that time, I probably would have recognized that being a 31-year-old female does not imbue confidence in other male executives, especially when you're transitioning cultures. So I think, I just wanted to come in and do a good job. And I accepted everyone in their roles. And I think I had hoped or assumed, what do they say about assumption, right? I assumed that everyone would accept me in my role. So there were some challenges there for me to really understand how to bridge the gap of understanding and to kind of prove myself to those who maybe thought, outside of the 15 people I interviewed with who hired me, that I was really capable and confident and I had earned my place. So that was a little bit of a, I think you take those things and you carry them with you into the next role and so on and so forth. And I carry that with how I coach others too, because I just think any experience like that just gives you awareness not only of yourself, but just how to navigate. And I think one of the most important things we can do as leaders in our industry, especially, real estate is real estate, but we're really a people business, is really just take your own experience and help give other people the roadmap to be successful.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think you're absolutely correct. And I think that especially early on in our careers, especially if you're someone who has been able to be in this field, like in your 20s and your 30s, there is a naivety there, right? Mm-hmm. Because you don't know what you don't know. You just know that you've been promoted or you have a new position and you need to make sure that you do it correctly. Right. And I think the challenges that I faced when I very first became a property manager is you're either too nice or you're too strict. I was too strict because I wanted to make sure that everything was getting done on time, the right way, the first time. And you have to be able to find that balance, and I think some of that balance comes with maturity and some of that balance just comes with experience.
Of course. Well, I think too, your my first property manager role, your first property manager role, you feel this sudden immense weight of responsibility that the buck stops with you, right? And so, yeah, I think anybody, it sounds like yourself, myself too, like I think our first inclination is to hold on really tight, right?
Yeah.
And try to keep a short rein and a short leash so that we all meet our deliverable because, there's always fear, I think, especially in the beginning of a career, I don't want to be proven wrong. I don't want to be, or not wrong. I don't want to be proven wanting, right? Or that I'm not capable of doing this thing, this big macro, deliverable now to run a team or run a department or run a company or run a building. I think the first inclination is always to kind of keep everything really tight and close and maybe not micromanage, but kind of in that same vein. And then you learn that you didn't learn that well that way, right? So you got like the breathing room that we were all maybe fortunately afforded in our career at certain stages, you learn to kind of take a breath and relax into whatever role it is we have, whatever path we're on and what we're, but I think the most rewarding thing about being in this industry and being in the role that I'm in now, and I hope you feel the same about your position in leadership in our office and the teams that you get to work with, is that you get to impact the careers of others.
Yeah.
It's about like the paying it forward is a real joy for me. Like the most esteem I get from my job on a daily basis is to see somebody else thrive, to see somebody else join our team, knowing that they're going to have the best opportunities in front of them because of how we're able to operate as a company and as leaders within that company.
That is one of the best things in the world, especially when you have that sit down and you explain to someone that they're being promoted and they get that excitement. It's like, I feel their excitement because I'm feeling my first promotion excitement all over again. And you know that it's the best feeling in the world. So I totally agree with you. Watching people thrive is wonderful.
Yeah. What's, within that context, like there, we give a lot of advice. We maybe don't, we at our level maybe don't get as much advice anymore. What's some good advice you got early in your career or yesterday? I don't know, whatever.
I would say early on in my career, I had a property manager, and this is probably when I first started, starting at the bottom. And I was young. I think when I started in this business, I was 23 or 24. And I would get upset about certain things, or I am fighting with my boyfriend. And one of the best things she told me, she said, everybody has stuff going on in their personal life. Everyone is dealing with something, but you need to understand how to separate personal from professional so that when you walk through your office doors, whatever was going on before work is not what's going on during work, right? Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people, whether they are in a entry-level position or where they are in your position, there are people in any industry who don't know how to separate those two, right?
Sure. Yeah, it's a life skill.
Yeah.
It has to be learned as well. And then, to your point earlier about, sometimes there's a bell curve of all these different kind of soft skills, right? And maybe leaning too far one way versus the other. There's also, I think, you can overdo that, right? Not you personally, but, you can overdo the leave it at home kind of vibe, because I do think that the authenticity we're able to hopefully share of ourselves with our teams, like it really it creates meaningful connection. And that word kind of authenticity has been used a lot, maybe overused in the last handful of years. But I think when you can bring your authentic self to work, it makes for better teams. It makes for better results. And that the authenticity, I don't mean it's not the sharing of, how your day was impacted yesterday by, significant other, spouse, kids,
Yeah.
pets, family, whatever. But I think that, again, there is that fine line of wanting to give enough of yourself so that people really know you, what your motivations are, where you're coming from is always, I think, a really good point for everybody to be aware of, because we go through challenges in this industry. Some of us who've been in the industry longer have seen various cycles of downturn and opportunity and downturn and opportunity, and we know there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. But when we are in a position as leaders to have to ask a little bit more of our teams to make sure that we can get through a downturn or some potential headwinds together, I think it's meaningful to be as real of a person you can be every single day, because when those situations happen, everybody knows that you're looking out for them. We're all in the boat together, and as opposed to being a little bit too canned or robotic in our communication or interactions, when you ask somebody to dig deep, then they don't really want to give, right? You get what you give, I guess, in terms of, being a real person coming through the door, and not just being, a mouthpiece or a figurehead for all the things that need to get done every day. And I think you've done a wonderful job of that as well.
Thank you.
Just making sure your team knows that you've got their back, that we've, to your point, we've all got things that we do outside of work, and those interests and dynamics are an important part of who we are. And I think you've cultivated and grown an amazing team around you as well. So I think that's a good reflection of you and your leadership.
Thank you. Well, I got to learn from my leader, which is you. And that's what made me happy. So I would say, tell me a little bit more about your mentors. You've had so many very interesting jobs, and you've been able to work overseas. What have they brought to your life? How have they changed you or changed your perception on how you do business?
I think, and I won't name the individuals, but only because I want this to be kind of neutral as to who the people are. But I think in my career, which has spanned certainly over 20 years at this point, I've had two key mentors, I think, throughout my career. And one I would say was probably kind of the first 10, 11 years of that. And the other one has been probably the last 10 years or so of my career trajectory. I think that initially having someone in a senior leadership position when you're just starting out, who is willing and able to give of their time just to hear you out and for, to share ideas and thoughts. And it's not the what do you want to do in 5 years? It's, do you have a 5-year plan? There are people who have 5-year plans. I don't think I've ever, especially when I was moving to Germany for that job, I just remember thinking I'm just going to keep going where the wind blows me, because the opportunities, I think, manifest themselves when you're open to saying yes to things and new challenges. And I have changed companies a few times in my career, but a lot of it has been because I've followed mentors. I followed, my very early career mentor to the next place she was going. And then that led me to relationships that formed strong ties with Morgan Stanley, and that led to that, opportunity to move to Germany. And certainly, had a very strong mentor in Chicago when I had a national position with an industrial REIT that led me to Stream. And like you, I feel like I found my home here, and the 6 years that I've been at Stream, I hope will be double and triple. I hope I end my career here. That's how much I love this company. But I think that mentors for me have been good sounding boards. They have not been overly, what's the right word? we all have our self-doubts, right? And so what you don't want are people who are just yes people to you, who will say things that you want to hear to make you feel better if you're having a bad day or you're having a career struggle or whatever the case may be, right? You really want mentors who are, first of all, are able to listen to what maybe you're going through, whether it's good or bad, or you want a challenge, or you're looking for an opportunity, how to get on the path that you want to get on. But you also want individuals who will be honest and direct with you if you need to course correct, if the way you're approaching something needs a little bit of a tweak, or if they think that you're chasing a path that isn't the best for you because they're 10, 15, 20 years down the road from where you're at, and they can kind of see that they could see better how to help shape your career because they've walked in the steps before you. And so I think that's like the two individuals that I would say I've had the most mentorship over my career really did that for me. And they weren't, it wasn't all platitudes and positive, atta girls. It was dig deeper, Coop, and try harder, and you need to focus on this. And if I needed a technical skill or a hard skill, like go learn how to do that, right? Because if you want the things that you want in life, you have to be prepared. And so I like to think of, those are, they're the people that you want by your side when times are tough. It's certainly you want and hope they're by your side when things are really good.
Yeah.
But I think mentors have shaped my career just from creating opportunities, helping create opportunities, but you have to be open enough too to tell someone what it is you want out of your career, right? If you're waiting for somebody to magically know what you're thinking, what you want to be your next step, to why you think you might need to be promoted. I mean, I always sit here and think, okay, as a leader, I hope I know every single person in our team or teams that I'm responsible for. I hope I know what their career goals are. I hope that they hear from me when I know there's an opportunity, whether it's a new building or a new client or a new portfolio, whatever the case may be. I hope I'm going to them first saying, hey, this is coming up. And I know that because of the conversations that we've had over 6 months or 6 years, that this would be right for you and you would want this. So I hope that's my goal, right? That I'm a proactive mentor for everybody because I'm listening and paying attention and knowing, what our teams want and how best to create those opportunities for them. And when things come along that we find good matches for people. But it's not, that would be egotistical to think that I can know that at all times, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's goals and careers and desires change, with any given day. And so I think the advocacy for self is something that I think is really part of the mentorship process. It's you have to be an active participant and waiting for somebody to recognize you. Now, certainly, if you've busted your behind and no one seems to be paying attention, that's probably a crisis of leadership. But I think if there are things that you really want that you haven't communicated, you have to be an active participant and communicate your needs and wants and desires so that somebody can help put you on that path.
Yeah.
Or create that path for you.
No, I totally agree with that. I will say that my very first regional manager in residential literally had to sit me down and have a come to Jesus meeting with me. And, I had never really had a mentor before. So to have someone sit down, have the heartfelt conversation with me, make me identify what it is that I want and what I actually have to do to get to that point, is a help. And I think it's a wonderful help. I think to an extent, you have even mentored me, because I know I can even bring it up. In 2019, we sat in my annual review, and you said, what do you want to do? What is your career path? And I said, I just want to train and help people get to where they need to be and make sure that they understand the process. And you said, that's called a VP. And I said, no, I don't think that's what I want. Mm-mm. And you said, that's what that is. You build a team around you, Amanda, and then you go ahead, you oversee them, you mentor them, you build them up. 3 years later, we're sitting here and you were absolutely correct. And I think some people take mentorship as someone telling you what to do. That's not what they're telling you what to do. They are looking at your skills, they are looking at your work ethic. They're looking at how you operate, because from the outside looking in, you have a better viewpoint on what someone is going to be successful at.
Sure. I mean, self-awareness is part of it, but also, we're all busy in our roles, right? Every day, no matter what you're doing at Stream and property management, our property administrators on up to our national head of property management. I mean, we are all busy, focused on the task at hand, delivering service, getting the job done, reporting, whatever it is, right? We all know there's lots of components to our daily jobs. But sometimes you don't give yourself the time to create the space to really be self-reflective, right? And so I think, yes, to your point, like I do try to do that for other people. I hope you are, as you are doing that for your team, because I think, when you shine a light on somebody else, it doesn't diminish your light. It brightens the light for both of you. And I think that, while that's a little bit of a cheesy saying or a platitude, like it's true. I think the best way anybody else can succeed and grow, and certainly, in the service side of the business, is to promote others around them who are doing a good job, advocate for others, because it's not, someone who's coming up around you that might be, more talented and qualified than you in certain areas. Like, if you hired that person, if you brought them into the company, and I'm not speaking about myself, please know that, but just any of us, right?
Yeah.
Like it is such a joy not only to take, like, again, have like the esteem of, we're build a great team, we're creating opportunities for people, but more than that, they're able to progress and move up because they are talented, and we helped with that talent and we harnessed it and we gave them the right opportunities for themselves. But that, think about it like just as a multiplier. We are talent multipliers. That is what we do every single day. And so I think it's really important that we, even though our lives get busier, work life, personal life, that we remember that's the goal out of any of this, right? Because how we continue to grow and build and replicate and multiply is how our portfolios grow and build and multiply, how our clients, allow us to expand with them with new opportunities too. So it's just, again, I know this, it's all about the people.
It is. It's
It is
totally
all about
about
the
the
people.
people. It's totally about the people. So what do you believe is like your significant turning point in life? Whether it was like your professional life, your personal life, what was that significant turning point for you?
It's funny, again, probably self-reflection too is not my strong suit. I don't know that there's been one massive, pivot, I think honestly, like so many of our lives, it's a series of events that kind of build and shape wherever we are now, or, wherever we're heading. I think that, and I hope this answers your question, well enough. I think honestly, the turning point for me, like if there was a turning point for opportunity, it was about taking the leap to move across the ocean to go work with Morgan Stanley with a bunch of Germans, and mostly a bunch of German dudes who I didn't know, in a city I'd never been to, with a language I'd never spoken or studied. I think it really was about taking that opportunity, because that position there was so multifaceted. Yes, it was a very technical team that I ran. We were doing, it was a big analyst team. We were, doing, like I said, doing all the business planning and reporting for all of the assets in like across Europe that Morgan Stanley held there. And, we were working with different Morgan Stanley funds and, RBS Bank, and, just, it was a lot. It was a lot going on. And I don't think I saw daylight for the 3.5 years that I was there. Like, we just worked our tails off. But from a cultural perspective, one of the greatest things about being in Frankfurt was how easily you could leave Frankfurt on a weekend and take a 4-hour train and you could be in Paris or Brussels or, Zurich or wherever. You could get on a plane and be in Italy in an hour and a half, which, obviously we don't have the same luxury of being in the States. And I think that really gave me the opportunity to see so many different cultures from a very finite amount of space and time. We traveled all over. My husband, who was my just my significant other at the time, made the move with me, and we were able to travel and see all these different countries. My parents came over and visited. My mom, who had never really had a passport other than probably to go to Canada or Mexico, we were able to, have her come over, and I took her to Istanbul. Like we went to Asia. We did all of these things. And I think that the more we are able to be global citizens or citizens of the world, the more we understand about people and our business. And I think that was a kind of turning point for me, was just the ability to see all of these different cultures in a relatively short span of time. I mean, short of, hey, if Stream wants to plant a flag in London, and then I'm all over it, guys. I don't know that I would have an opportunity to do that again, to work in different international cultures, but it was such an opportunity to see more of the world, to expand my personal view horizon, and to really bring all of that back and understand more about people and just how we all communicate and work together and want to bring more of ourselves to our daily life. I think just being physically outside of the U.S. for that period of time and getting dropped into different cultures was a huge turning point for my career.
Yeah.
What about you?
I would say my most significant turning point was becoming a senior property manager here with Stream. And I say that because in my career, I really feel like I struggled to be seen and heard. And suggestions that I made were, no, we've been doing this the same way for years. We don't need to do that. But with Stream, I was able not only to voice my concerns, but I felt validated. And with that validation has allowed me to open up. The clients that I work with have given me the confidence because my suggestions make sense, to where I'm allowed to run with these suggestions. I'm allowed to make decisions. And I would say, without knowing, taking this position was the significant turning point in my life. For many years, I thought, just getting into commercial real estate because it was very different from residential. But when you're actually able to sit back and reflect on your life and your career, this is the platform and the place that gave me the confidence to make myself feel as though I am smart as everyone else. I belong
Of course you are.
here.
I wouldn't have hired you if you weren't.
But you know what I mean? You belong
yeah.
here. I belong in this space. I belong in this position. I know what I'm doing, right?
You do. You absolutely do. And I think that's, the agency you feel over your career, it's priceless. It is really just knowing you have a seat at the table,
Yeah.
right? There are a lot of groups out there that don't empower their people the way that we empower them at Stream.
Yeah.
And, you've earned that. You've earned that opportunity and that right through the way that you've operated and demonstrated your thought processes and the relationships you've built with DRA, with Kim Sturba and like our internal team, right? And so I just, I think everybody having, like, if there's a broad career goal, right, for anybody to strive to achieve to, if you don't have it today, look for agency in your career.
Yeah.
Look for the ability to have a seat at the table, to have the voice. And, you know, if anybody for whatever reason wasn't feeling that at Stream, you know, come find us, because we will make sure that happens. But that's awesome. Well, Amanda Torres, this has been so great to dedicate the time and space to have this conversation. I think you and I are fortunate enough to be in the same office. Well, okay, I'm not in the Austin office as much as I used to be, but and you're in our newer satellite industrial office with your team, which is exciting for you. But I know that us making the time to do this was really important today, because I love spending time with you, and I love getting to have a meaningful, thoughtful conversation with you, but just also that we can share our paths and our opportunities, and hopefully that inspires others to either stay on their path in property management or get on the path to be in property management. It's been a real joy having the time and space to do this with you today. So thank you.
No, thank you. I really, I appreciate you. I appreciate having this conversation today. I appreciate being on this podcast with you, and I appreciate you seeing something in me that made you want me to be a part of your team. So a heartfelt thank you, because I don't think you know how much I do appreciate you. So
You are so welcome, but that you being you makes it easy to see what your capabilities and what you bring to the table. So you just keep doing you.
yeah, let's wait until you see my expense report.